Claressa Shields just got exposed on the biggest podcast platform in the culture, and her response? A full-blown crash-out that confirmed everything Joe Budden said. The self-proclaimed GWOAT woke up, saw one clip, and chose to fight a podcaster instead of a real problem. Yo, she really thought Twitter fingers was gonna save her legacy? Nah. And Joe Budden? He ended her with 3 words. Claressa really picked the worst possible time to prove him right. Before we get into it, subscribe, don't miss it. Nah. Joe Budden. Yes, the Joe Budden Podcast himself broke down Claressa Shields' August 15th, 2026 fight against Kaye Scott at State Farm Arena in Atlanta, questioning why a so-called GOAT had Zeus Network's reality TV circus wrapped around her event. Days later, Claressa quote-tweeted the clip with a full meltdown, and Joe responded with a cold-blooded, no comment. Claressa really thought rage tweeting was a defense strategy. Now let's look at the receipts that show exactly why this backfired. Let's start with what Joe actually said, because context matters here. On the Joe Budden Podcast episode following the August 15th fight, Joe opened with this: Claressa Shields is a real fighter. She's really her. Nothing I'm saying is about her really. When I heard that, I was like, okay, so he's giving her props UP front. Keep that in your back pocket, because it matters later. Then Joe got into production itself, and this is a clip that set Claressa OFF. If Michael Buffer ain't there, certain things I need to be there for me to understand that this is a real fight. They kept handing the camera in the audience. The production in the arena and the audience and everything that surrounds her may be part of why she's not in the conversation the way she needs to be in the conversation. Bro said the spectacle around her is hurting her legacy. That's it. And when I heard that, I was like, he's not even wrong. That's an observation a casual fan would make. Then came the knockout line. I think the majority of the fans that were there for Zeus Network. Those were Baddies fans. Those are also Ray J fans. Nah, when I heard that, I did a double take, because that's a brutal claim, and it turns out there's actual reporting that backs it up. Hold that thought. Now, Claressa's response. On August 18th, she quote-tweeted a clip on X and wrote, and I need you all to hear the energy in this. This clown face did not even watch the fight. Zeus Network and DAZN Boxing had separate fighters. Zeus fighters fought first. Then we had the real fighters fight. 17,000 fans spend their hard-earned money to come and support me. And they look good ASF. The biggest celebs were in the house and you hate. Joe Budden, how about you don't speak on me? I don't even know you. Lies. My name is solidified. I'm the best at what I do. Facts. Bro really typed, I don't even know you, while writing a whole paragraph about him. That's the move of someone who's desperate. And she wasn't done. Second tweet, always some old-ass man or woman speaking on me. And these people are not a fan of me or women's boxing, but have so much to say. No congrats on making history, getting the TKO, breaking records, $2 million gate, 17K beautiful fans. Biggest stars in the house. Just some BS about nothing. When I read that, I said out loud, she just demanded congratulations from a podcaster. The GWAT is out here asking for her flowers from Joe Budden. That line right there, that's where she lost the plot. And then Joe Budden's response. The whole response. Ready? No comment. Praying for this lady. That's IT. 3+ words of pure disrespect disguised as a prayer. When I saw that, I had to rewind and read it 3 times. Joe said more with silence than Claressa said with 2 paragraphs. Nah, you can't crash out like that and expect a man who built a career on pod wars to flinch. Now that we got the quotes, let's connect the dots. Okay, so here's what nobody's piecing together. That podcast clip, it dropped after the actual fight reporting was already out. And what did the reporting say? According to USA Today's live coverage on August 15th, 2 fights got scrapped from the card entirely. Danielle Perkins missed weight, killing her WBA light heavyweight title defense, and Ernesto Marquero lost TWO opponents to the scale, one coming in nearly 9 pounds heavy. The main card literally got delayed because the Zeus prelims ran long. DAZN was filling dead air at 8:30 p.m. So when Joe said the event felt off, that wasn't hate. That was documented. And that tweet from Claressa? It went up after the internet had already spent 3 days clowning the undercard. Y'all didn't notice this though. The Jasmine brand was posting about Zeus security guards fighting on the undercard. Zeus Security. We all saw this coming. The second Zeus Network's name got attached to a championship boxing event, the spectacle was gonna swallow the sport. Now let's talk relationships, because this matters. Claressa is reportedly banned from anything touching MVP promotions. That's Jake Paul's outfit, the same machine behind Amanda Serrano and the whole Netflix boxing wave. So when a defender say Jake Paul did it too, nah. Jake Paul built his OWN circus and put it on Netflix. Claressa allegedly can't even get in that building. Her options were already thin, and Zeus was the one holding the door open. That's not a flex, that's a corner you got backed into. And the presser? Reports from Fight Week had Claressa herself front and sent a bigging UP Zeus Network, saying Zeus was gonna sell the fight out. So the network she defended in that tweet, she was her loudest cheerleader 7 days earlier. Any smart person would have distanced themselves after the backlash. But Claressa isn't playing smart. She's playing hurt. Oh, and one more timeline dot for the road. Joe Budden is 45. Papoose, the man Claressa is publicly entangled with, is 48. So the old-ass man line? Joe is 3 years younger than the man she's defending the whole internet over. So Claressa really did this 3 days after the event with zero strategy? That's terrible timing. Brew. Claressa really thought nobody would connect these dots? But here's where it gets even more interesting. Now check this out. Nobody's talking about the specific wording Claressa used. Zoom into one phrase. They look good ASF. She wasn't defending the fight. She was defending the crowd's outfits. Think about that. Joe criticized the audience presentation, and her rebuttal was, the audience looked fly. That's a direct confession that she knew exactly what he was talking about and had no actual counter for it. You don't argue the substance, you argue the style. That's deflection 101, and she doesn't even realize she admitted it. Second layer, that $2 million gate claim. I ran that through the smell test, and here's the thing, nobody credible has verified that number. Not the arena, not the commission, nobody. Meanwhile, actual reporting says a crowd popped louder for Knuck If You Buck playing between rounds and for the actual ring walk. The crowd's biggest moment of the night was a crime mob song, not the main event. And Claressa really didn't catch what that signals? That's embarrassing. If she had half a brain, she'd have noticed the arena told on itself before responding. Third layer, the I don't even know you line. Forensically, this is fascinating. You don't write 2 paragraphs, tag a man, and list your gate numbers for someone you don't know. That's not indifference. That's a wound. The phrase pattern here is the same one she uses in every online beef. Dismiss, then over-explain. Real talk, it's a tell. Fighters who are secure in their wins don't publish resumes in the replies. And the deepest cut, Joe's 3-word response. Praying for this lady. Detective mode, he didn't say Claressa. He said this lady. He stripped the GWOT of her name. That's a calculated psychological jab. He reduced the most decorated woman in boxing history to a stranger who's allegedly praying over. That's a problem with Claressa. She doesn't read between the lines, and Joe writes entirely between the lines. She swung at a ghost and hit herself. Now let's see how the media covered this. So how did the outlets frame it? The Shade Room's coverage framed it as Claressa having words for Joe after he criticized the production, the crowd, and the overall presentation, basically positioning it as a clapback moment for her. But remember that podcast clip from earlier? The one that opened with him calling her a real fighter? That's not what the framing suggested. The nuance got clipped out for engagement. USA Today, meanwhile, barely touched the beef. They framed the night as a boxing story. Shields stops Scott in round 6. Towel comes in. Shields reclaims unified middleweight gold. But buried in that same coverage, the cancelled fights, the misweights, the delayed main card, Zeus prelims running long. So the boxing media validated the exact infrastructure concerns without ever saying Joe's name. You'll see how that works. Then you got the Reddit and JBP community threads, and this is where it gets honest. The top sentiment wasn't Joe was wrong. It was, and I'm paraphrasing consensus here, Joe wasn't wrong, he just talks without all the facts sometimes. Even Joe's OWN fan base, the people primed to ride for him, admitted his style is messy while agreeing the event looked, quote, Bush League. When your critics' haters still agree with his point, you lost the argument. Now, some people are saying Joe disrespected women's boxing and should stay out of combat sports talk. Claressa supporters are reaching trying to frame this as sexism. Here's why that doesn't hold up. Joe opened by praising her as a fighter, questioned the business around her, and the documented facts, miss weights, scrap fights, delayed broadcasts, support the business critique. The media tried to spin this as a gender war, but the receipts don't lie. If you still think Claressa had a point after all this evidence, you're just biased. But here's what nobody is saying. Here's what nobody is talking about. This was never about Joe Budden. This wasn't even about boxing. This was a masterclass in what happens when an athlete's brand gets held hostage by the very platform that allegedly saved it. And everybody's too distracted by the tweets to see the machine moving. Here's the real story. Look at who actually won August 15th. It wasn't Claressa. It was Zeus Network. Think about it. Zeus got their branding plastered across a championship boxing event in an NBA arena on a night where Floyd Mayweather himself reportedly pulled up. Zeus got Baddies fans, Ray J fans, reality TV fans all converted into boxing attendees in ONE night. And what did it cost them? Some prelim slots and a security guard fight. They didn't buy ad space. They bought the whole sport for an evening. Claressa is a puppet in this play, and the network is pulling strings. And the genius of it, remember that tweet where she defended Zeus and separated them from the real fighters? She's now out here doing Zeus's PR for free. Every crash out, every paragraph, every 17,000 fans claim, she's selling the narrative that the Zeus experiment worked. The network doesn't need to defend itself. Its champion does it voluntarily, with trigger fingers, at 2 a.m. energy. Man, that's not a fighter defending her honor. That's a brand ambassador who doesn't know she signed a deal. Now let's go deeper, because this is the part that's gonna make you uncomfortable. Why does a two-time Olympic gold medalist, the most decorated woman in the history of boxing, need Zeus Network and allegedly OnlyFans-linked sponsors in the first place? Because real sponsors reportedly won't touch the brand. And I hate saying it, but follow the logic. The public entanglement with a married man, the online slap situations, the petitions, the subliminals, the constant beefing with fans. Every family-friendly brand allegedly looks at that and walks. So she ends up with the ONE network whose entire identity is chaos. It's not a partnership. It's a perfect match of reputations. And that's a tragedy. Her talent is undeniable, but the culture around her has been manufactured into a spectacle she can't escape. We saw this with the old-ass man deflection. Joe is younger than Pap. She knows the internet would check that. She said it anyway. Because the goal wasn't accuracy, it was emotional cover. This is psychological warfare she's losing against herself. Every move she makes online is predictable. Dismiss, over-explain, demand flowers, repeat. Joe Budden, a man who has survived 2 decades of rap beefs, label wars, and podcast fights, identified the pattern in one podcast segment and disarmed her with prayer. She's playing checkers while Joe is playing chess, and she doesn't even know what game board she's sitting at. And here's the coldest part of the forbidden take. Zeus doesn't need her forever. This whole event was a proof of concept. Zeus boxing, baddies in the ring, reality stars with gloves. That formula now has a sold-out-looking arena on its highlight reel. Next year, they take that show on the road to every city with a baddies fan base, and they won't need a real champion to headline. They'll need a name. Claressa wasn't the main event. She was a Trojan horse that got reality TV through boxing's front door. The industry needs her to keep crashing out. Every tweet keeps the clips circulating, keeps the event relevant, keeps Zeus trending. She's giving them exactly what they want. And that's the truth they won't tell you. The loudest person defending the Zeus fight is the person it hurt the most. So what happens next? Here's what's most likely to happen. Joe Budden is not gonna respond again. He's gonna let that no comment, praying for this lady sit there and marinate, and every day it sits unanswered. It's gonna eat at her. When the next podcast episode drops, watch. He's gonna address it for 90 seconds with jokes, never raise his voice, and move on. And Claressa? She's gonna look desperate screaming into the void, quote tweeting a man who already logged off mentally. The silence is gonna hurt her more than any response could. Mark my words, she'll tweet about him again within a month, and it's gonna look worse every single time. Now, if the alternative happens, If she keeps escalating and tries to call into shows or challenge Joe publicly, she's stepping into his arena. This is a man who has made a career out of verbal combat. She is not ready for what's coming if Joe ever decides to take this seriously and dedicate a real segment to her receipts. We saw what happened to everybody who went bar for bar with Budden in his rap days. She doesn't stand a chance in a war of narratives. Either way, she loses. Silence buries her. Escalation exposes her. Now look at the bigger picture. Wait till Zeus Network announces their next boxing event. And it's coming, trust me. When that card drops and Claressa's name isn't the headliner, everyone's gonna remember this moment as the beginning of the end of her leverage. She's gonna watch Zeus sell tickets of the Formula SHE validated, with reality stars who don't need to win a single round. When that happens, her legacy conversation shifts permanently, from greatest women's boxer ever to the champion who legitimized reality TV boxing. 5 years from now, people will look back at August 2026 as a night her mainstream credibility started dying, and the tweets as the moment she confirmed it. The culture is already moving on without her approval, and there's nothing Trigger Fingers can do about it. Whatever happens, one thing's clear. Claressa already lost the only fight that mattered this week, and it wasn't in the ring. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed uncovering the real story, smash that like button and hit subscribe so you never miss when we expose what everyone else is too scared to say. Ring that bell for notifications. And if you want more truth bombs like this, click on one of these videos next. Trust me, you'll want to see what we found.